Would you like to be somebody who understands how comprehending the concept of God makes you care less about what other people think? Then listen to this entire video where I explain how an active moral conscience gives you a deep sense of security in ethical and moral behavior that you act out, and how you really don't care then if people agree or disagree with it, because you can fundamentally feel that it is objectively righteous. So before we get into this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Let's get into it. So I recently noticed how I worry far less about how people react to my behavior and my opinions, because I feel objectively righteous when I speak truthfully and behave kindly, forgivingly, and humbly. Now, when I use the word righteous, it sounds sort of quite arrogant and supercilious. However, it's something you feel, and not in a hubristic way that you feel righteous, but just like you emotionally feel like the behavior you act out is just correct. And that's it. And you just feel that. Now, beforehand, I used to be somebody who I mean, I still do to a degree, who cared a lot about other people's opinions and what they thought of me, whether they agreed or validate my behavior, who I am or not. However, recently I was in a situation where I was talking to somebody about I forgot what it was specifically. I think it was about God, or about the concept of God, or moral behavior and ethical conduct. And after the conversation, I was reflecting about how the person reacted and whether they understood what I was talking about. But actually, I just didn't really, it didn't matter whether they understood it or not. Because only what matters is if I acted out, and if I felt like it was moral or not, whether it was aligned with my moral conscience. That's all that mattered. And that was a super interesting discovery for me. So I feel like I don't need to justify or explain myself. I don't feel like I need to defend why it's good to act out ethically or morally. I don't require validation. And this is a super interesting thing. You kind of have like, typically, when you're with other people, you interact with them, everybody seeks validation. It's a very human instinct. But it typically tends to entail that you get validation from other people. It's like you need them to sign a piece of paper that what you did was correct or good, or whether they agree with it. Now, with this moral conduct, when you behave ethically, like forgivingly, lovingly, kindly, like genuinely kindly, you have this internal click that sort of validates itself. You don't need that external validation. It takes care of itself, that contract. It just gives you a tick like, yes, that was good. Without sounding superstitious, without sounding delusional or dissociated, you can like fundamentally feel it. I mean, I think I'm not dissociated. I don't think I'm like delusional or anything. You just have this internal click, like it's good. It was good, whatever you behave, whether like if it was moral. It's this sort of unnegotiable truth, and this is super profound actually, because it kind of indicates that there is an objective truth that there are so many. I mean, in this life as being a human, there's essentially close to nothing that you can be certain of, because the world is just so complex. Like you cannot say saying something like this is true. You need to be super careful when you throw a statement like that around, because there's essentially close to nothing that you can be certain of that is true, like truly 100% accurately certain. But this thing about this internal sense of peace you get from behaving ethically, behaving according to your moral conscience, what you feel is right, and not doing what you think, like avoiding what you think is wrong. It's just like a certainty. It's a thing you can just be certain of, like it's right, and that's insane. That's profound to feel that. that certainty, because there is close to nothing you can be certain of, but this thing is, you feel it's certain without any like, you know, people can be delusional and you might think that something is true, but there's always something deep inside of you that you might not bring it into consciousness and be aware of it, or like choose to be aware of it, but there's something inside of you that you know, if something is not right, but you think it is right consciously, but deep down you feel it's wrong, there is some sort of twisting that goes on in you, like something is not quite right, and you can kind of unconsciously feel it, let's say. But this thing is not unconscious, it's conscious, and you can feel with your entire existence that it is right, whether when you behave, you know, kindly, genuinely kindly to people. And what I got, and like, you have this internal peace, so you don't get vexed if somebody disapproves of your behavior. It's just like that. And this development within myself really came to my mind actually when I was reading the book The Brothers Karamazov, and there's a character Alyosha in the book who has the same development. And what I noticed from his behavior was that he seemed to care less, or not care much, about what other people's opinions were of him, and whether, you know, there's the typical, you know, discussion of, you know, Alyosha, he's a pious kid, and he's talking to people who don't believe in God, but he doesn't feel like that. He doesn't feel the need to justify himself or actually explain it. He just, all that matters is that he is, you know, he is close to his moral conscience. That's really all that matters. He doesn't feel the need to justify it. So, and what also happened was Alyosha said something quite interesting. He said that, this is a quote, "Nearly all clever people now are fearfully afraid of being ridiculous, and that makes them unhappy." And he's referring to these intellectual people who are afraid of making a fool of themselves. And what came to my mind is that as soon as you start adopting behavior in life that you chose as a consequence of something intellectually, something in your mind that you thought of would be good, then you move into the realm of behavior that is more likely to be wrong, or to be suboptimal. Let's say this moral behavior is optimal. Let's just say that, like, hypothetically it's optimal. And as soon as you start to live in your mind and you come up with these theories of what's the best way to act in life that, you know, will get you what you want, or is good for you and for the people around you, because it stems from your intellect and not from the moral conscience, that behavior is, by like mathematical probability, more likely to be wrong than if it's just this objective optimal behavior that is influenced by your moral conscience. And that I found super interesting. So it's quite, and I think it's quite true. As soon as people start coming up with intellectual ideas, or essentially anything that does not stem from the heart, from the moral conscience, it's like you have this core of the moral conscience that anything that stems from it is correct, let's say, maybe. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's the case. And as soon as you move out of this core, you immediately go into a realm of that is questionable. You don't know if it's correct anymore. You can't know perfectly, and it's very difficult to distinguish whether it's good or not. And that's why people are afraid of being ridiculous, because they don't have that certainty that it is the good behavior, the right behavior to act out. That's why they're worried and I've been guilty of that myself, that I'm afraid of, you know, I've come up with cool ideas, different theories that I might think that are good, and like good ways to act out, you know, like to hustle, or to like grinding, you know, hard work, or just to like be confident, you know, to act like I'm more confident than I really am. As soon as you get into those ideas that stem from the head, you move into a realm that it's dangerous. Like it's probably, it's a lot harder to just know whether it's good or not. I just put it like that. And generally, I feel a lot more sensitive as a consequence of being closer to the concept of God and a moral conscience. And since I have a more active moral conscience, which I'm far more in tune with, I'm a lot more sensitive to behavior that is probably suboptimal, and I very quickly noticed then, oh, that was not good, or thinking about whether, or like predicting certain behaviors or deciding which behavior to act out in a situation that will like arise in the near future or will occur soon, I can distinguish very like a lot quicker which is the right behavior to act out. It just comes to me a lot quicker because I'm more in tune with my moral conscience. Yeah. So in conclusion, having a more active moral conscience makes you care less about what others think, because this moral conscience gives you this sort of objective validation that it is right and it is ethical and it is nobody can sort of argue with it. It's righteous, it's universally correct, and anything that sort of stems outside of that, or like any reasoning for your behavior that stems outside of the moral conscience is more likely to be, let's say, not genuine and not moral, more, let's say, clouded by your ego, arrogance, seeking validation. Yeah, I would say. So I do really I highly encourage, trying to spark the moral conscience. It's quite a, yeah, it's a process that takes time. It doesn't suddenly click, certainly not. So please leave a comment below whether you feel yourself that you have an active moral conscience and that sort of that you are in tune with, and whether you're sensitive to it or not. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Thank you for listening.